Hi. All right. I took a little break from last weekend doing a video, and that's fine. I really shouldn't be apologizing. It is what it is. I was going to research a little bit more with oops, excuse me. Whoopsies. All right, it's going. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I was going to research a little more on Revelation 10 and 11, but so many thoughts started bombarding me. I didn't want to lose my train of thought, and I might anyways, so forgive me. And add what you want to the comments. Um, but as I keep reading, when you read the scripture, it just surprises you sometimes, and that's how I feel. I thought, oh, as Revelation goes on, it gets a little bit trickier to understand. But then some things seem so clear and peaceful in my spirit about it. And so I just had to share. And then always, as I do these studies, it seems that things want to distract me. And it's so funny. I'm going to go on a little side note before I start reading that I was watching UAP's latest video, and he was showing a picture of a UFO over a burning church. And I was at the same time looking up art depictions from past centuries for this study as I was listening. And the moment I clicked on, and I was using DuckDuckGo, which is funny, not Google, but I clicked on search, and the moment he was talking about that picture he had found of the UFO with a burning church, look what popped up. The same exact depiction. So it was just kind of funny. I'm like, oh, well, the Matrix is in full swing, and can you unplug me now? I'm trying to feel the back of my head. Anyways, it was just kind of weird. I just wanted to share that really quickly. Back to what we're going to be reading. So, here's some things as an intro of why I wanted to just start before I lost my train of thought. So we're at the halfway point of Revelation. We're getting to the time period I am beginning to understand we are in now. And I honestly have not thought about these specific chapters in a while. At the same time, these, especially chapter 11, I always had in my mind as a young adult studying it, but not studying it, but hearing about it, hearing teaching about it. That's the part that stuck in my mind the most. I don't know why, the two witnesses, chapter 11, I don't know why. But I found some interesting things to go along with that. So let's start with chapter 10, the angel and the little book. Another side note I want to say as an intro was I just noticed, and I've been praying about Yah's real, true, holy name. I have heard different teachings recently on that. So I'm thankful for my friend Trevor and others who I follow that want to be specific to the Most High's true name, which has been hidden, I believe, on purpose because the devil wants glory for himself. That's what he's always wanted. I've noticed in my Names of God book, so the names of Yahweh, Bible translation, the whole book of Revelation, they use those generic terms: God, Lord, Jesus Christ. And formally, in the other books of the Bible of this translation, they use Yahweh and Elohim, especially in the Old Testament. So I don't know why that switched, but I thought that was an interesting point, especially when we're talking about the revelation of Yeshua and of the Almighty what is to come and what has been, I believe. So there's that. I did start looking through my commentary, but I had to stop, so I might go through that together with you, kind of, at the same time without kind of rehearsing in my mind what I'm going to say. So bear with me if it's going to be something, whatever he says in the commentary is going to be new to me also. So I might have to think, pause and think, Selah. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little hyped up. There's a lot going on in my personal life. There's a lot going on spiritually, and maybe I had too much coffee this morning. When I get to these points in the Bible and in life, it just gets a little overwhelming. But, the Father, our Heavenly Father, is so gracious, and, He just leads us down the path we need to go. We just have to listen. Okay, so let's start reading. I'll stop rambling. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed in a cloud, with a rainbow, a halo over his head, and his face was like the sun, and his legs were like columns of fire. So, rainbow depicts God's promise over his head, clothed in a cloud. I'm only going by my own biblical knowledge. So, the cloud would refer to God's leading and heavenly things. The rainbow refers to Yah's promise, and how it is sure that once he says something, it holds true forever. His face was as the sun, so that's glory, brightness, and feet and legs, columns of fire, which has two meanings. I'm specifically thinking of in Exodus when Yah had led Israel through the wilderness with a pillar of fire or a pillar of the cloud. So by day and then by night, for the fire cloud by day. So I think the cloud could mean that, and then the fire could mean his leading in the darkness, or it could mean his judgment. So I did read a little bit in the commentary that this depiction of this angel could be Yeshua himself, and there is some debate about that. Knowing that this mighty angel has great power and authority. That's what the commentator said. So take it for what you will. Okay? So this is what he did with his might that John sees in his being. Okay, so he had a little book, a scroll open in his hand. So I'm kind of referring back to the other chapters previously where the scrolls were closed and only Yeshua was worthy of opening them. So this open scroll is referring to, we don't know who opened it, but open means ready to be brought upon the earth, I think. Okay, that makes sense to me. So he had it open in his hand. He set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. And he shouted with a loud voice like the roaring of a lion, compelling attention and inspiring awe. And when he had shouted out, the 7 peals of thunder spoke with their own voices, uttering their message in distinct words. So 7 different messages. Remember, 7 is Yah's number. I tell that to my children. It's his special number. And 7 separate voices, distinct, with distinct messages. And when the 7 peals, I'm in verse 4, when the 7 peals of thunder had spoken, I was about to write, just as he had been previously, but I heard a voice from heaven, so I'm assuming this is Yah the Father, because the angel, at first I thought the angel was telling him not to write, but then I read it again and I then understood it was the separate voice. So we have the angel there in front of him. He is not speaking. We have the 7 distinct voices and distinct messages of thunder. And then we have that one voice above all of that saying, seal up the things which the 7 peals of thunder have spoken and do not write them down. So he heard these 7 messages, but he just said, but then I believe the Father said, do not write these down. They are concealed. Then the angel whom I had seen standing on the sea and the land raised his right hand to swear an oath to heaven, and swore an oath by the name of him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things in it, and the earth and the things in it, and the sea and the things in it, that there will be delay no longer. But when it is time for the trumpet call of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, then the mystery of God that is, his hidden purpose and plan, is finished, as he announced the gospel to his servants and prophets. I'm going to stop there. I know the commentator mentioned a little bit about this, and then I had some questions about what the commentator had said, because as we all know, mainstream, especially those that believe in dispensations and things, take these things in Revelation as purely symbolic. He does speak that if this angel is Yeshua himself, that he came down from heaven, and he said there is no evidence that Christ comes to earth midway in the tribulation. But we really don't know that. Yeshua, he can do whatever he wants. If it is him described here, then it is. We can take it as that. I don't know what else. I guess he's referring to other chapters, other verses depicting that. But so I'm not sure. This was interesting. I'm going to read from the commentary. Some have tried to connect this book with the scroll of chapters 4 through 6, which I mentioned before, but there's no clear identification which would make these the same. The name of the book itself is different. In chapter 5, verse 1, the scroll is described by the Greek biblion, whereas here the diminutive form is used, biblariadon. I'm sorry, let me try to pronounce that correctly. Biblariadion. So small. The contents of the little book are nowhere revealed in Revelation, but they seem to represent in this vision the written authority given to the angel to fulfill his mission. And anybody that has more apocrypha knowledge than I do, I'm not sure if that book is mentioned anywhere else. Please let me know. Okay, another thing that I gleaned from this was, I think the Bible has been dumbed down because our society is dumbed down. So I'm thinking back to Sunday school when I learned about these things growing up. You think of creation, and you have to have the right creation view also. So if you are not a flat earther, you cannot understand the depth of other scripture. And I don't mean to say that in a demeaning way. I'm the only one in my family, the only one I know, besides my husband, I don't know anybody who is close to me that knows this truth. So, okay, back to what I was saying. Verse 6, and the verse before it, when he puts his feet on the land and sea. One can't do that without the earth being a certain shape and way, a plane. And I believe when he says, swearing to him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things in it, so that means, that doesn't mean space, that means the heavens. that things we can see here and things that are beyond the dome, the firmament, and the earth and the things in it. So that doesn't just simply mean, I don't believe, just the people and animals. I mean, God loves little puppies. He made puppies, but it doesn't just mean those are the things, the created things. I think there are more created things. I think we have a realm here where we know of, and there's also hidden realms. And I think that things that used to be, this is going to get confusing maybe, but the things that used to be in our realm that are no more in our realm, that maybe they have gone to other parts of the created earth. I believe that entails that too. I know that's getting really way out there, but I can see that. I can understand that now. And it's not going against what the Bible talks about. The same with the sea and the things in it. Okay, it's not just talking about the little fishies swimming in the sea. Although, like I said, like the puppies, God created it. They are his created things. But I think it's more than that. Just like the Bible constantly talks about the things above the earth and under the earth. He's not talking about the earthworms. And if we lived on a globe, these things don't make sense to us. They just don't. You have to realize that. But you know, only the Holy Spirit can show you that. So that's what I referenced in my commentary here, because it is a flat earth reference, I believe. So anyways, it's just interesting. Okay, let's go on. So that's what that mystery is in those messages. Hidden for his purpose and plan, announced the gospel to his servants to his servants, the prophets. So only for the prophets to know. Okay. Then the voice, verse 8, 10 verse 8, which I heard from heaven, I heard again speaking to me and saying, go take the book, the scroll which is open in the hand of the angel, who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went up to the angel and told him to give me the little book. Okay, so let's assume this is God the Father, Yah the Father. I heard again speaking to me, go take the book, the scroll which is open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went up to the angel and told him to give me the little book. Then this angel spoke and said, take it and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey. So I took the little book from the angel's hand and ate it. And in my mouth it was as sweet as honey, but once I had swallowed it, my stomach was bitter. And they said to me, okay, the word of Yah, but was saddened as he realized the approaching judgment. That's why it was bitter, which I can understand that. And did you get that as the same time I did? I hope so. Knowing God's holiness, but also his holy judgment against evil. Okay, then they said to me, so I'm assuming the angel present with him and God, Yah the Father, you must prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and languages and kings. Now, here's another point I just thought of. We are not going to have any more kings in this time, even if the New World Order is coming or is here. If you think about Revelation more logically, in a different time frame, there were many kings previous. Whether you think about the alternative hidden history or the timeline that is given to us. And it is given to us for a reason, not for good reasons. Okay, so I'm going to read this, which was interesting that the commentator said this. Okay, he said, in each of the three instances, sea is mentioned before earth, though the normal order in the book of Revelation is to mention earth before sea. John is more impressed by the fact that the angel stands on the sea than upon the earth, but the symbolism in either case indicates complete authority over the entire earthly situation. But I beg to differ. Like I said, I don't think this is symbolism. I think that it could have literally happened. John saw this angel standing on the water and on the land. So I also wrote, it makes more sense, I wrote in the little column here, the art we see in the past depicts the actual scenes, not symbols of what Revelation states. Okay, so when, and let me say this too, this is a thought I didn't want to forget. And thank you, Yah, for bringing it back to my mind. If the narrative that we are given is true, that people, I'm going to go to a picture. It doesn't necessarily, it's just for an example's sake. Okay, so here's, I think this is John receiving the scroll, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I just found it and I thought it was interesting because it has some symbolic things. Okay, the owl, the demon-looking weirdo giant things. And these are giants. He's a giant. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm getting distracted. If these things were truly just symbolic, the art would not depict them as actual things that are seen. So what I'm saying is the narrative we're given, let me get back to my point, is that the time before us, they were unlearned and had no technology, and their knowledge was taken from unreliable, unscientific sources. Just, they were basically dumb, and we have evolved, okay? But that is not true, and we know that's not true based on what the Bible actually says, even though the church and Christianity does teach evolution, whether they want to say it or not. Biblical times were not less technological. And so what I'm saying is these art depictions are not, I mean, there are symbols in the world, yes, but I don't believe all of them are symbolic. I believe they do depict the things that they saw or that they were told by others that saw it. Okay? And I have seen, not clearly, and I can't explain it, it's in the spiritual realm, I have seen things clearly, things in the spiritual realm, I shouldn't say clearly, but unclearly, okay? It wasn't like flesh and blood standing in front of me, but I've seen entities and what they look like, and honestly, they're not far off from these, okay? So I believe they are there. They're out there. And it's not just someone's imagination, going away with them. So I think in some instances, I'm not saying in this case necessarily, this is just as an example, like I said, but I'm saying in some cases, someone saw this creature and drew it. Or someone, I'm not an artist, but if I told someone like my sister, who is an artist, to depict something I've seen, I bet they could render it. Right? Okay. So I'm really getting tired of all these mainstream people saying, oh, the symbols, oh, the symbology, oh, Revelation, I'm begging to differ, okay? So just like with John and this angel, I believe he saw an angel with a rainbow over his head, his feet as fire, and he stood on the flat plain on land and sea. So that's my point. All right, let's move on to chapter 11. And this is very interesting. Like I said, I think a lot about this chapter. I don't know why. So I have a few thoughts about it to go into. And thankfully, this video will not be as long as the others. But let's move on. So, The two witnesses. Then there was given to me a measuring rod like a staff, and someone said, "Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar of incense, and count those who worship in it." So I'm going to read my translation. I was given a stick like a measuring stick. I was told, "Stand up and measure the temple of God and the altar. Count those who worship there. But do not measure the temple courtyard. Leave that out, because it is given to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months. Okay, 3.5 years. Dressed in sackcloth. Nope, don't care about that. Let's see what that says. Okay, it's about the size of a man. So that's the size of a modern man now, not back in the day. Okay, rise and measure the temple of God. I have to say, I don't know what this is talking about. Let me look in the commentary if he has anything good to say about it. If he might. This command to measure the temple of God makes John the actor as well as the observer. Kind of like when you're in a dream, you know? The temple of God, in the Greek it's called neon tau theou, refers to the holy place and the Holy of Holies. So if you know your temple layout, that's what it's referring to. I could find one for you if you're not familiar with it. I'm vaguely familiar with it. Layout. Okay. All right. You can look at this as I'm reading. Okay. The altar is referenced to the brazen altar. Now he says maybe referenced. I believe it's referenced to the brazen altar, which was in the outer court. And although the altar in chapter 8 seems to be the altar of incense. So remember when the prayers were going up in heaven? Only priests could go into the temple, but others who were not priests could approach the brazen altar with their sacrifices. Right here. Although John is commanded to measure the temple and the altar and them that worship therein, he is instructed not to measure the court without. The explanation given is that this is given to the Gentiles, and that the outer court, as well as the entire holy city, will be under Gentile dominion for 3.5 years, 42 months. A number of questions can be raised concerning this symbolic picture. Maybe it's not a symbol, just saying. In Zechariah 2, a man is seen measuring Jerusalem, a scene which evidently portrays God's divine judgment on the city. Another instance is found in Ezekiel 40, where the temple of the future kingdom is carefully measured with a reed. Still another instance in Revelation 21, where the New Jerusalem is measured. The act of measuring seems to be signifying that the area belongs to God in some special way. It is an evaluation of his property. The temple here is apparently that which will be in existence during the Great Tribulation, or has been. Because we all know that these great buildings were around, and we're not told what they really were. UAP just said it today, and it resonated with me about Revelation, that the commentary that the mainstream gives us so that they can hide things from us. The good in history was really the bad, and the bad is the good. So he was talking about the Roman rule, but this may be the same thing. Just like they mix up the mud flood buildings, that something has happened, those temples or buildings were used for different purposes, and they just claim that they built them, which they didn't. It also resonated with me about the verse saying, "They call," meaning the world, always under Satan's rule, "they call evil good and good evil." And I believe that encompasses, and that's what evil does, that encompasses everything. whether it be what you put in your arm, that's evil, but they call it good. Whether they call what happened in history evil, but it was really good. Kind of like the Genghis Khan mentality, that Genghis Khan probably was someone good, but they call him evil. So, anyways. Yeah. Just food for thought. Here we go. I'm sorry, I told you I had a lot on my mind. Okay. The temple here, this is back to the commentary, is apparently that which will be in existence during the Great Tribulation. Originally constructed for the worship of the Jews and the renewal of their ancient sacrifices. During the Great Tribulation, it is desecrated and becomes the home of an idol of the world ruler. For this reason, it is most significant that John is instructed to measure not only the temple and the altar, but also the worshippers, though the true followers of Yah. It is saying, in effect, that God is the judge of man's worship and man's character, and that all must give an account to him, which is true. It also implies, inasmuch as the reed is 10 feet long, that man comes far short of the divine standard. No. Now, here we go again. I don't know why this says 10 feet. He would be referring to the KJV, and my newer translation says 6 feet. So that could be for confusing purposes. If it's a 10-foot long reed and people were taller back then, like this dude here, if this is John, that is tall. Or if average people were 10 feet tall. Anyways, you know. Whoop, don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Okay. God is therefore not only claiming ownership by this measurement of the temple and the altar, but demonstrating the shortcomings of the worshippers who do not measure up to his standard. The second verse adds further light to this situation in that instruction is given not to measure the outer court because it is given to the Gentiles along with the holy city for 42 months. Here again is the familiar 3.5-year period, or half of the 7-year period predicted by Daniel, in which Israel's history will be consummated with Christ's returning at its close. Expositors have differed as to whether the 42 months are the first half of the 7 years or the second half. The decision is complicated by the fact that in verse 3, another reference is made to the 3.5 years as the period during which the two witnesses, which we will get to, give their testimony. On the basis of the evidence, it is not possible to be dogmatic. If the point of view is adopted, however, that revelation is primarily concerned with the latter half of Daniel's 70th week, this perspective would seem to give weight to the conclusion that this is the latter half of the week or the last 3.5 years prior to the second coming, especially in the light of details of judgments portrayed in the seals, trumpets, and vials. So I would tend to agree this is right before the millennial reign of Christ. And as it is now, Yah is always looking for those who truly worship him in spirit and in truth, inside, closest to him, and those outside. Spiritually, now we can be a little bit symbolic here, but I truly believe that these Gentiles, because of Yeshua's sacrifice, can be grafted in and can be here. See, that's where the curtain and the veil is. We can go directly to Yah himself now. So there is no more distinction of where people worship. However, whatever time we're in, we have to understand what place we have now in the spiritual realm of what we believe and how we live and how we understand truth and worship him in spirit and in truth, where our hearts are. Outside, I believe, this could be where the church is. I'm sorry, I had to say it. Sorry. And where those of us who are truly open to understanding him deeply okay. That's all I'll say about that. Okay. Let me show you the picture. Okay. So I found a couple pictures. I don't know the origin, so I'm sorry. But here's a depiction of the dead witnesses, whom only the beast killed. People could not kill them. Let's read about it first. And then I have some commentary on that picture. Okay, so he measured the temple. Okay, verse 3. I will grant authority to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days. So that's 3.5 years. Dressed in sackcloth, so mourning. These witnesses are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands which stand before the Lord of the earth. I didn't get to look up the depictions for olive trees and lampstands. I'm sorry. So maybe I can get back to that another time in my next video or something. Verse 5, and if anyone wants to harm them, fire comes out of their mouth and devours their enemies. So if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. So this is referring to pagan people. Verse 6, these 2 witnesses have the power from God, from Yah, to shut up the sky so that no rain will fall during the days of their prophesying regarding judgment and salvation. And they have power over the waters, the seas and the rivers, to turn them into blood, and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they wish. Okay, so we know a lot of plagues happened in history. I'm just saying. Now, there are a lot of plagues put upon us nowadays, but we don't always know the source. Well, I should say some of us do know the sources, some of us don't. This is more specific, that they knew, the world knew where this was coming from. When they have finished their testimony and given their evidence, the beast that comes up out of the abyss, the bottomless pit, so that's under the earth, will wage war with them and overcome them and kill them, and their dead bodies will lie exposed in the open street of the great city Jerusalem, which in a spiritual sense is called by the symbolic and allegorical names of Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Those from the peoples and tribes and languages and nations look at their dead bodies for 3.5 days and will not allow their dead bodies to be laid in a tomb. No one cares. Everyone's mocking what they see here. Now this man has a halo. I believe this is John because he has a book and he's writing things down, just like this other picture. John with a book. Looks similar. So, and he has a halo. I'm going to assume he's seeing this, okay? He's pretty big. This is big, and this is a tiny miniature town. These are big people. I'm just saying. I don't know. Okay. So here's the 2 witnesses lying dead. There's another depiction. Oh, I might have blown it away. There was another picture that showed the beast coming up, killing them. So I'm sorry, I lost that one. So these people are looking at them for 3.5 days. I don't know where everybody else is. Here's my thinking also. Now we know we cannot make art like this. I have only seen this type of art being done, this type of art in the museums. No one in modern times, I'm talking about 18th to 21st century, that can do this kind of depiction. And here's something that came to my mind. Why would people back in these times depict something so far in advance for them? They would have no reason to even think about these things happening in such detailed fashion. Because shouldn't it be the other way around? If this hasn't happened yet, we as believers should be depicting this because it's so close or so much closer. It's just kind of a thought I had. But they depicted it very well, as if it happened in their time. Just a thought. I mean, it wasn't just hobby. I don't think these people, these artists, were just doing this for fun. This is almost a calling. Okay, so there's that. And also, I was thinking about, we don't know where this really is. Spiritually, Sodom and Egypt, so these mean pagan worshippers, and you know what sodomy is. They were called that, but we know them as different names, which I wrote in the commentary here. We know these places as different places. I think a lot of names. It had me think again. We don't know many names truly. I think names of places have been changed for more confusion's sake. Okay. So, verse 9, those from the peoples and tribes and languages and nations look at their dead bodies for 3.5 days and will not allow the dead bodies to be laid in a tomb. Those non-believers who live on the earth will gloat over them and rejoice and will send gifts and celebration to one another because these two prophets tormented and troubled those who live on earth. So they were bringing judgment to the world, to the evil, and prophesying against them. But people were mocking and rejoicing in their death because they weren't bothered anymore and tortured and killed by them. But after 3.5 days, verse 11, the breath of life from God came into them and stood on their feet. And they stood on their feet, and great fear and panic fell on those who were watching them. And the two witnesses heard a loud voice from heaven saying, I think that's Yah the Father, come up here. Then they ascended into heaven in the cloud, and their enemies watched them. And in that very hour there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell and was destroyed. So this evil, evil city fell. Okay, so Jerusalem, evil city, fell. Oops, I'm sorry. Great earthquake, 1/10 of the city fell and was destroyed. 7,000 people were killed. Let me see what this footnote says. Names of people. Okay, so I didn't get this from before. That's why I go on, that's why I go on this too. Okay, so 7,000 people by name were killed because obviously 7,000 is not that many in a city, but 7,000 specific people were killed. That's interesting. And the rest who survived were overcome with terror, and they glorified God in heaven as they recognized his awesome power. The second woe is past. Behold, the third woe is coming quickly. I just want to read what this says. Glory out of servile fear, not worship. So obviously we know that. They are trembling. The seventh trumpet, Christ's reign foreseen. Then the seventh angel sounded his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, the kingdom, dominion, rule of the world has become the kingdom of Yeshua, and he will reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders who sit on the thrones before God fell face downward and worshipped Yah, saying, to you we give thanks, O Yah Almighty, the omnipotent, the ruler of all, who are and who were, because you have taken your great power and the sovereignty, which is rightly yours, and have now begun to reign. So here's the millennial reign. And the nations, the Gentiles, became enraged, and your wrath and indignation came, and the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time came to reward your bondservants, the prophets, and the saints, God's people. So there's a distinction of prophets and then the saints. Those who fear your name in reverence and awe, I will put in there for you, the small and the great. So that in my Bible I have here, and in the commentary, the unimportant people and those in greatness, the important people. It doesn't matter, those who fear his name, everybody. The time came to destroy the destroyers of the earth. Okay, so we could put in here, because we know as truthers, the time to destroy the destroyers of the earth. Let me say two things about this. Okay? Put it in pink because it's goofy. Oops. Goodness me. Sorry about that. I didn't know that would do that. Everyone wants a piece of you. Okay, let me go back. Okay, the time came to destroy the controllers of the earth. Okay? At least some of them. And the temple of God, and I believe there were others that obviously it said they survived. But that's where the resets come in, I believe. Okay? So destroy the controllers of the earth, because they are the destroyers. And the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened. And the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple, and there were flashes of lightning. So this is a little chaotic here. Loud rumblings and peals of thunder, and an earthquake, and a great hailstorm. Okay, so here's that picture. I wanted to look, and UAP mentioned this also in his video about possibly this already happening. And I wanted to look up earthquakes, even though it's Wikipedia, which is Wikipedia. But I thought this was interesting. And like I said, the 7,000 that were killed were specific people. And obviously there were many more killed in other earthquakes. Nothing of around the time of 72 AD, unless they just took it out. I don't know. Now, there's also the theory that America, or the Americas, have more significance. So, and we know now that California has a lot of earthquakes. It wasn't really, nothing was recorded in America until 1811 in Missouri. And then in California until when the resets were, the main resets that we know, in kind of in the 2-3 generations past us, before us, 1860s, 1850s. I thought that was kind of interesting. But like I said, they have changed history on us. So all of these earthquakes may not mean anything. And they just took it out. Now, there was an Antioch in 115. Turkey. That's a lot. Let's look for the number 7,000 specifically. I don't see. Nope. Nothing close to 7,000 specific people. Here's 5,000 in Peru. 5,000 plus in Japan. Yeah, nothing here. A lot of unknowns, but the first one was recorded in China. That would be the Tataria nations, possibly. I don't know. Greece, of course. Greece, Asia Minor, Italy, Pompeii, Antioch, Syria. Holy Land. Destruction in the Holy Land. 363 AD. I don't know. Here's a Galilee earthquake in 749. Tens of thousands. Thousands. Very vague, aren't they? Probably thousands in China. So my main point here is I just wanted to see if there was something close to the timeline that we're given. but it doesn't look like it. Now, there is at the end, let's see. This is where I'm not sure about the millennial reign. This is supposed to be during that time. I mean, if you take our, I don't know if you take our timeline that we're given, it's very confusing. I'm not going to confuse you with it, but it's very interesting to look at the earthquakes. It seems like this earthquake was obviously just in Jerusalem and struck those 7,000 specifically, and the area specifically, obviously. And then we will get into the reign of Yeshua. Well, and we'll get to the red dragon, Satan, and everything, to his first throwing in. So, anyways, that's what I have. I'm going to encourage you to keep searching. More things have come to light, and I just encourage you, like I said, to be spiritually seeking Yah's truth and not being those outsiders, whatever time we're in, because he still has a plan for us. And it's not over yet, but it could be soon in a good way. That's all I have. Blessings.